WELCA Sunday, when we celebrate women in this congregation as well as women all over in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And they asked me to preach about living boldly. And I like this graphic. Live boldly. Everyone has purpose. And within that saying, there's another saying. Live on purpose. And you could even take it one step further and say live with purpose. Live a life rooted in the love of Christ. Live and act to show others that love and to show that grace that we have all been given. Live a life that screams, you are saved. You are a child of the Most High. One of the things I did was just Google live boldly. And the most repeated image and video happened to be Gal Gadot. Well, when I was reading about her, I thought to myself, she is a pretty bold lady. She was crowned Miss Israel in 2004, and then she went on to serve 2 years in the Israeli Defense Forces as a combat instructor. Then she went on to study law, and while she was studying law, her modeling and acting career took off. And maybe you recognize her because she portrayed Wonder Woman. Well, last year, Time magazine named her one of the most influential people in the world. And I think that she is a very good example of acting and living boldly. But you don't have to wear red lipstick and have high heels and be on the silver screen and make a lot of money in order to be bold. When I think of women in the Bible acting boldly, I think of Naomi and Ruth. Ruth showed so much boldness by staying with her mother-in-law. She probably would have had a better chance to get out of poverty if she would have left and gone back and tried to get with family and friends. Both of them were widows, and they didn't have many resources back then. The future was pretty bleak. But Ruth showed great resolve to stay with Naomi. I think of the woman washing Jesus' feet with her hair and extravagant perfume. I mean, what an act, a bold act for an impoverished woman who shared everything she had because she was grateful to be forgiven. I think of Mary, the mother of Jesus. I think of her acceptance of this seemingly unexplained pregnancy and her ability to embrace the unknown. And I think of my own mother, who less than a year after my dad died, decided to leave her home that she had lived at for more than 40 years in Connecticut, leave family, leave a church family and friends and all that was familiar, and come and live down here. And perhaps you have done something bold and you can relate as well. I also think of Katharina von Bora, Martin Luther's wife. A National Geographic article was written about her, and the title is How a Runaway Nun Helped an Outlaw Monk Change the World. When Katharina's mother died when she was 5, she was sent to a convent. And she spent most of her early life there. She learned how to read and write and speak Latin and sing. And then when she got to be a little bit older, during the time when Martin Luther was writing criticism of the Catholic Church, several nuns, including her, began writing to Martin Luther. They agreed with his teachings. Well, eventually the nuns were smuggled out of the convent and they went to Wittenberg to find eligible bachelors. Well, Katharina decided she was only going to marry Martin Luther. Well, their marriage was quite scandalous on many levels. I mean, you've got a monk who broke his vows and you've got a nun who also did the same. Martin Treu, a historian with the Luther Society in Wittenberg, who had written a biography about von Bora, wrote, Von Bora was seen as self-confident, strong-willed, and independent, which are all negative attributes for women at that time. Pretty bold. Well, they had 6 children together, and while Martin Luther preached and taught, well, she took care of the house and the kids, and then they turned an old monastery back into basically the equivalent of a hotel. And so when people came, visiting professors and students, they had a place to stay. It was also a source of income for them, and that allowed them to buy a farm and to raise livestock and have food. And then she ran a brewery to boot. She was a very savvy businesswoman. And Luther sometimes referred to his wife as Wittenberg's morning star. up earlier than anyone else in town. And he also called her Lord Katie. Eleanor Roosevelt was a pretty bold lady. Since her husband served 4 terms, she is the longest serving First Lady in the United States. She was quite an activist and humanitarian. She received both criticism as well as praise. And she said, "There is no more liberating, no more exhilarating experience than to determine one's position, state it bravely, and then to act boldly." And therein is the difference between someone ordinary and someone extraordinary. The ability to act. But you don't have to be in the history books to be bold. You don't have to plan something for months. Your decision to help a stranger can be a bold act. And I think all of us in this room act boldly on a regular basis. And maybe we just don't even realize it. But I get to witness it all the time. I witness it when we're feeding people who are in need. Not just feeding their stomachs, but also filling them up because they need hope. They need fellowship. I see it when our volunteers hug people who come to the food pantry who are just struggling to get by. I know that people will go out to breakfast after church and they will have fellowship and they will encourage each other and they will share stories of faith and grief. I know people who give their hard-earned money to charities and to missions right here in this congregation. And there are plenty of people who boldly accept a call to act. From community lunch volunteers to quilting for veterans, people willing to bring communion to people in the hospital or at home, singing for residents at Thrive, and Stephen ministers who help during very dark times. The list goes on and on. And there are people who are caregivers for spouses with dementia. There are those who care for aging parents, and there are those who care for their grandchildren to help raise them after they've raised their own children. Maybe your bold move is writing a check. Maybe your bold move is going back to school or starting your own company. Consider the WELCA mission statement. As a community of women created in the image of God, called to discipleship in Jesus Christ, and empowered by the Holy Spirit, we commit ourselves to grow in faith, affirm our gifts, support one another in our callings, engage in ministry and action, and promote healing and wholeness in the church, the society, and the world. Unfortunately, I don't get to attend welcome meetings much anymore. A few years ago, I had the privilege of doing so and even being a leader. I'm not sure how good of a leader I was because I was a little bit frenzied just trying to make it to the meetings on time. But I always looked forward to them. I gained so much wisdom from these women. I'm in awe of their faith and their love of Jesus Christ. While my own parents lost their oldest son at the age of 26, no other families had experienced that loss when I was in high school, and I went to a school with 2,000 kids. So I was a little surprised when I came to Shepherd of the Sea how many families had lost children. But I was inspired by their faith. They didn't blame God for what had happened. They embraced the Most High. They long to see their children again, but in the meantime, they're here to spread compassion and kindness. I want to share with you a little excerpt from this book called God is Always Hiring by Regina Brett. And she was a columnist for the Plain Dealer, and she lives in Cleveland, and she's written a few books. This one is fantastic. And since we lived in Cleveland, I know some of the people that she's writing about, which is kind of cool. But I thought this was an excellent example of you not having to be famous in order to be bold and to act boldly. Laura Bickamer lived a simple life, lived all of her life in the same house she grew up in. When she retired, the math teacher died at age 93, and she left $2.1 million to Baldwin Wallace University in Berea, Ohio. She graduated from there in 1936 and had attended on a scholarship. She never forgot the power of someone else's generosity. Part of her gift will go toward scholarships. Bickamer never earned more than $40,000 a year. Imagine living on that when you have $2 million in the bank. But she saved it for others. She once wrote, "I have discovered that one's life can be quite simple and unspectacular." yet full and worthwhile. Hers turned out to be a simple and spectacular life. So this week, I want you to think of how you can be bold, how you can live boldly, and then I want you to go out and do it.
Amen. She did a fantastic job. If you'd like to hear her preach, you know, she preaches every week. Every single week at our Wednesday weekly service, weekly worship on Wednesdays at 1, right in here. So if it's too busy and frenzied on Sunday, come and hear the good word from Miss Julie.